I want you to find your breath somewhere in your body. You could do a little scan from the nostrils, the sinuses, to the throat, to the chest, the rib cage, the solar plexus, the diaphragm, the belly, all the way down to the root. You could slowly move through that breathing pattern, finding a place you want to settle or releasing any tension that's willing to release. Or you could just pick one and start there, like the breath coming in the nostrils or the belly expanding and contracting. If you find your mind is very scattered, you might want to move lower into the body. Let's actually do a couple counted breaths in and out just to feel ourselves in our body, really feeling maybe the belly. And we're going to breathe in 6 and breathe out 6. It'll be on my count. So wherever you are, let the breath out and breathe in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Couple more in your own time. Letting go of all that thinking and talking we just did. And feeling our breath. When you finish the second breath, just start labeling in and out. When the breath comes in, label it in. When the breath goes out, label it out. And we're paying close attention to the physical experience. I encourage you to do some of the practices we've been practicing over the last couple months. For instance, really letting the breath come in and out when it wants to. So just wait for the in-breath to come in. It has its own intelligence. You don't need to do it. We are just watching the breath come in and out. When the breath fills up, wait for it to stop. When it starts to breathe out, wait for it to breathe out. Wait as long as you need to until the body is ready to breathe in, breathe out. Notice the stillness that starts to come over you when you really get out of the way. And let the breath breathe itself. In, out. This is just a practice of concentration here. So when the mind wanders, that's normal. If the thoughts are loud, that's normal. If there's discomfort in the body, that's normal. It pulls your attention, you notice, and then you bring it back to the breath. In, out. Anytime you feel settled enough, you can already start noticing that the in-out breath is happening in awareness, but there's no rush on that. For those of you who are ready, you can start adding in the whole body. So as you breathe out, you start to zoom out and feel the whole body. And when you breathe back in, you zoom back in on the breath. So it's in, out, whole body. You wait for the breath to come in, and then in, out, whole body. There can be a real relaxation that arises when you let the body release on the out breath and you let your attention release to feel the whole body. And then you wait without any doing for the breath to come back in. And as the breath comes back in, it sucks your attention back into it. Okay, so we can start noticing that this is all arising in awareness. Today, I want you to notice that the meditator, there's an image of the meditator. It's made up of color and light and shape. It may not be super sharp, but it's there. An image of the meditator. As you breathe in, there's an image of the meditator. As you breathe out, there's an image of the meditator. As you go to a whole body, there's an image of the meditator. It may be an image of your whole body. It may be an image of your head or your face trying to meditate. It might be an image of your heart or some other part of your body. But as you're focusing on the breath, there's also an image of the breath, but also of the meditator. Now we assume this meditator is us, or we assume this image is us. This picture of me is me, but of course it's not. It's just a picture of you, right? We already saw that. The picture of you is not you. The picture of you is arising inside of you, just like the breath is arising inside of you. So we're just aware of the breath and we're aware of the meditator. The meditator is just an idea right now. So I encourage you to allow the meditator to move how it wants to, just like the breath moves how it wants to. What do I mean by that? We wait for the breath to come in, and it comes in when it wants to. It flows, it has a kind of flowy, changey experience, and then it flows out. Now, the meditator is just an image. It is also shimmering and flowing. It's vibrating. It's coming and going. It's getting bigger or smaller, more distinct or less distinct. It's okay if it disappears. We don't need to hold on to it, right? We don't need to create it, and we don't need to hold on to it. It can disappear or appear how it wants to. So the same thing we were doing with the breath, we're allowing it to happen on its own. The breath breathed itself. We want to let the meditator meditate itself. The meditator can meditate without us doing anything. So we're not trying to get rid of anything. We're not trying to figure anything out. We're not trying to improve anything. We're not trying to fix anything. We're just allowing for an experience of our breath and the image of ourselves meditating. It's just as if we were to open our eyes, you don't have to, but open our eyes and look at ourselves on the screen, and we can notice our breath coming in and out, feel it as we watched ourselves on the screen. We're doing the same thing here. Closing our eyes, we're noticing our breath come in and out, we're noticing the whole body, and we're also watching ourselves on the screen of the mind. We aren't doing anything. We're just letting this all happen inside of awareness. Okay, so now you stay with whatever you're doing if you want to. I'm just going to expand the practice a little bit. Just as we did with the face on the screen, I want you to start to notice that the image of the meditator is seamless with all the other images that are going on in your head. What do I mean by that? Well, you have the image of the meditator, but you also have the image of the room. You also have the image of the back of your eyelids. You have an image of the world around your room you might have. Images of a bird going by or a traffic or some memory or some plan may arise, but those are all part of the same screen as the meditator. Notice that the meditator image is just one image among many. It is not more important. It may seem bigger at first, but it's not really bigger. Breath keeps coming in and out of its own accord. The meditator keeps arising in visual experience of its own accord, but all the other things also arise in visual experience of their own accord. You don't need to control anything. You don't need to try. Just notice that there is a visual field that's arising. The idea of yourself might be in that visual field, but the visual field is one experience. It is a visual field that feels like it's inside, which is sort of the eyelids being closed and your imagination. There's a visual field that feels like it's outside, which is your imagination of the room around you and your body. But they're both inside or they're both outside. They're both in the exact same space. They're in the visual space. You can add, if you want to start going crazy here, the auditory space, the feeling space, but no need to. You can just sit with the visual for a while. In, out, whole body. And if anything is distracting you, if you have some discomfort in the body or emotion or just persistent thoughts, I just want you to start to notice that they are also arising in the same field of awareness. They are not a distraction. They can't be a distraction because they are part of the same thing. Yes, if your attention is supposed to be only on the breath, then they become a distraction. Well, we're starting to tune into awareness itself, and they cannot distract from awareness. There's nothing wrong with them. They are one part, they are one with the rest of awareness. any suffering or resistance you're feeling right now arises somewhere in sensory experience as part of the field of awareness. One way to put that is there is the ocean of awareness, and there's little waves that might be a thought about yourself or some emotion or some discomfort or my voice, but they're all waves of the same ocean. Ultimately, you are the ocean. You are not any of the particular waves. Reminding ourselves, just as we wait for the in-breath to come in, we wait for the out-breath to go out. Here we can wait for the waves to arise and the waves to crash. We don't need to control any of the waves. Notice that when they crash, when the waves crash, they all crash into the same place. They all crash into the ocean of awareness. Notice that when they arise, they all arise up out of the same place. They arise up out of the ocean of awareness. If you want to add one last piece, there is no size to this field of awareness. If you think there's a boundary to it, that's just another part of your visual experience. It's often described as infinite or boundless, but the boundless is sort of more appropriate. It means that there isn't a boundary. It's not that you just keep going and going and going and awareness gets bigger and bigger. It's that there's no actual boundary to it. Just like when we closed our eyes and we noticed there's no real way of determining what the size of the visual field behind the eyes are. It's the same thing with awareness. There's literally nothing that anything could be added to awareness. It would be able to take it in. There's no thing too big or too small that couldn't be added to awareness. And so just imagine that finger pointing back at the experiencer right now. If you haven't already, I really want you to let go of as much effort as possible. Just allow yourself to sit here. We're not trying to control or improve anything. You're allowed to be exactly as you are. Your attention is allowed to be exactly as it is, small and narrow and jumpy, or big and wide and spacious, doesn't matter. Your body is allowed to be however your body is. Your thoughts are allowed to be however their thoughts are. Your emotional feelings are allowed to be however they are. Your breath is allowed to move how it wants. Your sense of yourself is allowed to be there or not be there. Your amount of identification with the self is allowed to be there or not be there. And we're doing a practice of just sitting now, just sitting. Okay. So you just slowly come back to opening your eyes if you wish, and stretch a little bit. Your body to move how it wants to move. Bodily movement being a similar element of the sensory world as anything else. That means you can let it arise and let it move and let it disappear. I'm going to actually stand up and shake it out a little bit so you can do the same. I'll be back in a couple minutes.